Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. Radio station WKMS at Murray State University will be 37 years old this May. With us to talk about the station is station manager Kate Lochte. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Barry.
As old as I am, I remember when this station got started. But actually, radio at Murray State goes all the way back to the year of my birth, 1949.
My year too.
There we are. Tell us about the very beginnings of radio at Murray State in 1949, the Thoroughbred Hour.
Well, you know, we were looking at this WKMU Radio Center handbook.
And it was WKMU before it was WKMS.
Right, right. And this was published when the radio station moved from where it eventually wound up after what we're talking about next. It wound up in a little studio in Wilson Hall at Murray State. And then it moved up on the tower, the Doyle Fine Arts Tower, when that was constructed. Raymo Field moved it up there. And Jay Landers was one of the first student managers. So he sent me this book when we celebrated our 30th anniversary. And it said, the first words were, it's Murray State College on the air. Tonight we present the initial program of the Murray State College on the air. I am happy to present Mr. M.O. Rather, Director of Public Relations at Murray State College. And then it went on from there. Dr. Ralph Woods was there.
Who was president of the school.
Right, and then Raymo Field was a special assistant to Dr. Woods, and they got together and started budget talks about we want to teach students in West Kentucky about radio broadcasting because it's one of the most powerful forces in modern communication, and some of the verbiage in here says without radio we'd have no space program, you know, God bless America, radio is the thing, and it was that kind of spirit that got this station going.
And of course in 1949 television really had not come into its own.
There you go.
Another decade at least until it really starts to reach out. So
you're talking Edward R. Murrow.
Edward R. Murrow.
And
yes.
you know, we're doing the This I Believe series with NPR that is a recasting of what was going on back then. But anyway, so the college started it, and then the local station, WNBS, got interested in having programming from the college on an hour a week. And so that could be anything from activities at Murray State College to dramas, or I think we were talking about a special Western series that they produced that made a big leap from Murray State to a radio station in Paducah.
That's big time.
Big time. So, you know, it started evolving as waves of enthusiasm through students being involved. And when it went on the air, actually, as a longer form, I think it went to 9 hours when it finally got up on the tower. It was doing things like broadcasting the entire graduation ceremony.
That was a showstopper.
Yeah, or entire meetings of the Board of Regents. And I know
that's also exciting.
As recently as Dr. Kurth, who was the president of Murray State University several years ago, we broadcast his inaugural ceremonies on WKMS as it is today, 100,000 watts. But back then it went on the air, you know, on a limited basis through the graciousness of the folks at WNBS, and then it became a 13,000 watt station once KET was building out here, and they built a tower out near Farmington, out 121 between Murray and Mayfield. And so they wanted to locate the WKMS tower on that stick once it got built. So they sort of held things up until that was ready, and then that's where we became a real FM station. Then as that was going on, NPR, National Public Radio, was getting its act together. and the station sort of morphed from being a student operation to being a professionally staffed operation in order to get federal funds for public broadcasting through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. So that's sort of the evolution, but the personalities that we're skipping over include, once again, Raymo Field, who this region knows.
I suppose if anyone could have the title of Mr. Radio, Western Kentucky, Raymo Field would be it.
He's still sort of the guy. He was instrumental in understanding how in the heck you get a license from the FCC early on, and it's still ruinish to do that. But he was in business with Shelby McCallum for years and years, and we remember WCBL getting on the air. And Raymo Field was the voice around here for a while. So all of us at Murray State who were fortunate to work with him when he was faculty member there were regaled with stories. You had one about Dr. Ray putting...
That's the story I heard, was that when he was doing radio, if he had a bit of a sore throat, he would take the old West Kentucky standby Vicks Salve, I guess properly Vicks Vapor Rub, but we call it Vicks Salve, and he would take 2 fingers, I was told, dip it in that stuff, and take a big blob on his fingers and sort of paint his throat with it, which is astonishing. I've never heard that before, and maybe that's not true, but that's what I heard that he did.
Yeah.
Then you told a story that he was eyewitness to history in the '48 presidential election, the surprising victory of Harry Truman, and his running mate, who was down the street here, Alvin Barkley, and he was there at Barkley's home to broadcast that.
Went all over the nation. And so Raymo Field had the chops and the authority to get this station firmly entrenched in Murray State University administration as part of a lab for students to learn radio, and also to keep Murray State University activities and the City of Murray's activities broadcast to the region. So he was the founding oomph, and of course he had a lot of young people coming up. Bob McGahee, who's been retired a couple years now from the Department of Journalism and Mass Communications, was there at the beginning and part of this whole effort to make a radio station a good experience for students and also a good experience for Murray State University and its activities. Tom Morgan was the first professional manager hired in to run the station with students, mostly graduate students. Well, heck, my colleague Mark Welch, who's on the air at WKMS now, was one of the cadre of graduate students who came through. He's been in and out of the station for, 25, 30 years now. He won't admit it. He still thinks he's young. But we've had waves of expertise coming through and graduates going out and doing important work in broadcasting elsewhere. Some names, when we celebrated our 20th anniversary, I was pretty new at the station, and so met Jay Landers, one of the first student managers of the station. He sent me a bunch of stuff. Met Keith Todd, whom you know.
Right. Was at WPSD for years.
And he's now Department of Transportation PR guy in our region, and doing an excellent job telling you when what bridge is busted and such. But Keith Todd called baseball games on WKMS. And he recalled people like Tom Severino and Gabe Hobbs, who've gone on to broadcasting careers. Gabe Hobbs, I think, last time I caught up with him was a VP for Clear Channel, one of these really huge operations in broadcasting. So it's been a remarkable run for this radio station. And Raymo Field was real proud that I think Murray State beat the University of Kentucky getting a public station on the air. I think Moorhead was among the first, but Murray State was right there in the middle of the pack getting public radio on the air. So it happened because the university started supporting it, and then listeners started supporting it, and and it's been going on that way, with lots of other stuff having happened since those first days. Now, when you wanted to remember the strange appearance, the first public appearance in the United States of Lieutenant William Calley.
Yes, that's how it was billed. I was a graduate student in journalism at that time, and for whatever reason, Calley was going to make his first public appearance ever. And of course, My Lai, it was a big topic. The trial of Calley, that was a big topic. He was in all the news magazines, newspaper. Brought a lot of national media coverage, and I thought, well, I'll just watch this. And he appeared in the studio, and he sat down behind a desk, and he sort of had this deer in the headlights look, which, and then he said, I've got nothing to say, or I'm not going to say anything, or not going to answer any questions, and got up and walked out. And of course, with my limited experience in television, when nothing happens for 30 minutes, that's kind of hard to fill a hole. And so I think everybody wondered, what would he do the night? The big event was that night in Lovett Auditorium. And he came to Lovett Auditorium, and there was, I don't know how many people knew that he had backed out of this press conference, but he came up to the podium and he spoke very frankly without notes. I remember seeing some of the network people there, but that was a big event. And I, to this day, don't know how Murray State landed this, but that was quite a coup, because it was billed as the first public appearance since the trial. It was in 70, what did we say, 75?
75.
75. And that was amazing. And something else I remember, and I wonder if it's still there, there was a bulletin board sort of a thing where famous people would sign it.
It's on the 8th floor of
It's
Price
still
Fine
there.
Arts. Yes,
And
sir.
I remember Al Capp, the cartoonist came, and
Yes,
he
sir.
drew a little drawing. Who all has signed that thing?
Well, I can barely read them, but all of the stage acts that came through for a while, but Al Capp is the most interesting one, because there's a caricature.
Right.
But
right.
yeah, we found it back in the engineering shop and decided it had to be an icon. So it's.
Oh, it was
it's on
taken down for a while?
It was not around when, in '88, when I joined the station.
Really?
And somebody was cleaning up the back room and said, wonder what this is. And one of the guys said, well, I remember that. And so we've got it framed.
It's white, isn't it? And
Sure
they wrote
is.
on it with magic markers.
Sure is,
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember that. Now today, how far out does your station go? And you bring in how many parts of how many states?
Well, some people who listen to the Indie Connection late Saturday night say we go pretty far out. That's our independent band show, but I digress. You're talking coverage area, and we've grown a lot since that 13,000
Well, I'm sure. In
watt.
1949, for example, how far would this signal have gone?
I bet it was reaching Murray pretty well.
Yeah. Well, of course, Murray is the world, but
Well, you know, it was significant for just being there.
Right. Oh,
and
absolutely.
then the 13,000 watts with the KET tower, and then now I want to say it was 77, 78 that the university received a $150,000 grant to move the transmitter from the Farmington Tower to a new tower that Kentucky Early Warning System and Murray State built in LBL, the present site of our transmission tower. So, and it canted the signal off in the other direction. So our good friends in Fulton and Clinton kind of got shortchanged on the signal that they had once enjoyed. But the university's hope was in moving it off to the northeast, that they'd be able to compete with Western Kentucky University in throwing a signal into Henderson. They thought they could move it further and get a further service region to mirror that of the expansion of Murray State University's programs in service region. So that didn't happen. There was a little FCC dust-off about between Murray State and Western. but it's been at the same site since then. So we've had listeners way up into southernmost Illinois. I've heard the station between Girardeau and St. Louis on 55, but it was a stretch. I've listened to music from the front porch in Owensboro, also a stretch, you know, one of those fluky FM skips. Then in the 80s, when there was a proliferation of other signals getting into the non-commercial end of the FM dial, the signal sort of softened off down in the Paris region. And then we noticed some problems with the Ohio River here in McCracken, and that's when we added the translator in Paducah and the translator in Paris. So we've due to terrain, the lowness, we've tried to improve your signal in low parts of Paducah and in Paris, and then we added another translator recently in Madisonville to pick up some of the edges that were fraying a little bit in our marginal signal there. So, you know, it's on a given day, FM can be in many places other than where you think it's going to be, but I can listen to WKMS down to about where the first speed trap is in Clarksville on I-24, and I get it pretty much all the way in Paris, and then I get it out to Hickman in the river counties. But that might be an anomaly. So it's a big signal. We say 27 counties because that's what the Arbitron book looks at.
How is the station staffed? You're obviously the station manager. That's a full-time professional position. How much student involvement is there in the station today?
Well, they are the backbone of our operation. We are not allied to administratively the academic program, so we have students from all disciplines at Murray State, and they participate in the station in business roles and in performance roles. They're paid staff, and they're expected to be to perform at a professional level. And they're a great group of students, and they understand we try to hire students with a 3.0 GPA coming in so we can work with the brightest of the bright and put them through their paces, and they are expected to perform or they leave. It's kind of a tough little unit for stations or for students to be employed at, because it's not sit there and do your homework. You're part of the business, and we're very proud of. I'd say we have about 15 every semester who are tough, smart, participating students. Not all on the air. Many of them are back office workers helping us old folks with web stuff that, you know, we're moving into that, and they can do it immediately where I have no facility for that yet. So we kind of trade off expertise that way, and we're very proud of them.
And of course you have a fundraiser every autumn and every spring, and we're getting toward the spring fundraiser. What is your target goal for money this time for this spring?
Well, it's a big one. Since we've been moving to become a digital station, in addition to being an analog station, we've incurred a whole passel of expenses that we're trying to get back on our feet from, in addition to putting more public radio on the air for the region. So our goal is $100,000 this year, and when we celebrated our 30th anniversary, it was $60,000 for each fundraiser. So we are right in the middle of taking the station to the next thing in its history, and that's why I brought along this kind of boring little HD radio receiver. It's what the next iteration is going to be. This is the first of the next iteration of radio listening, where you can turn on 91.3 FM, where we are now, our main signal, and then you can go 91.3A and get one signal, and 91.3B and get another signal, and have two separate programming streams, which I think is amazing. It boggles my mind how this happens. And it's even more interesting when you consider how we're going to shoot it out to the region. We're going to use the FM antenna that's on top of the 500-foot tower now in LBL, and we're going to stick a digital antenna up inside it. It's called an interleaved antenna, and then there are going to be a whole mess of switches in the transmitter hut, and there'll be a digital transmitter and 2 analog transmitters, so we're really redundant now. But that digital transmitter is going to allow us to push out more programming, and we're hoping that includes more classical music programming. Since we've added more news after 9/11, it was too compelling not to. Our classical music listeners have suffered a loss, and we want to address that loss.
What is your most popular programs, 1, 2, and 3 on WKMS?
It has to do with drive time, just like a commercial broadcast station. It'll be morning edition, All Things Considered, and Music from the Front Porch, just in terms of when people are using radio more than they are at other times. So Saturday morning and drive times. And those shows, the Music from the Front Porch is a show that's been done by volunteers for almost 30 years. Volunteers and station staff. Right now, John McMillan, who is the Chief Information Officer over at Graves County Schools, is a host, alternating with Mark Welch, our program director. But the morning edition and All Things Considered from National Public Radio cost the station by themselves about $44,000 a year. We're a member station with National Public Radio, which means we pay dues and programming subscriptions for the rights to broadcast these remarkable programs in our region. And it gives us the capacity, a few other things the station has had on over the years. I wanted to remind you of Ralph Nader being on about the same time Callie was on. But in recent years, we had wall-to-wall coverage during the events of September 11th. We had something that wasn't real exciting radio, but it was important radio, and there were the confirmation hearings for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which I was very proud of us carrying. We have the capacity to switch over to very sophisticated news producers all over the world. For example, when the Columbia disaster occurred, we had the capacity to switch over to wall-to-wall coverage from Florida on that. And it's that kind of bench strength that affiliation with a national public radio provides the region, and why we maintain it.
I think the thing that appeals to me, if I may be venture an opinion, is the in-depth coverage, which structurally commercial television can't really provide. You're talking, it always amazes me when you have a NBC nightly news or the CBS or ABC, 30 minutes to cover the world. And I think there again, if you're talking a 1 or 2 or 3 minute story, that's all the time they have for. Whereas with NPR, it's much more in-depth coverage, and those of us who are news junkies and like that, and when I listen to your radio station, is in the morning, going to work, in the afternoon coming home. And if we're out and about on Saturday, yes. But I think that's the thing, if people haven't listened to your radio station, they would be amazed at it's not just a headline and a lead paragraph, it's the meat of a story.
Well, I tell you, I've heard you speak of BBC, and we carry that in the wee hours of the morning. And my husband and I are early risers because of our dogs. And I remember when the Pope passed away, hearing the Mass for the Pope from Rome live as a special, and it just really made me feel very proud to be a part of a world event like that through this 100,000 watt radio service from Murray State. I think the region ought to be proud of having that as a resource. And another thing I've thought about over the years that I've been involved with the station is that throughout its history, it has grown audience for all of the fine arts organizations that are thriving today, for WKCTC's Fine Arts in Focus series with which we partner, for the Carson Four Rivers Center, for the Yiser, for the Paducah Symphony Orchestra. This station has provided many musical experiences for kids who would otherwise not hear any of these musics. And I'm not just whistling Dixie on this. A really bright kid who worked at the station named Marty Scarborough from Murray, who is now a program director for the station in Jonesboro, Arkansas, told me that he had never heard big band music in his life before he started working with Bobby Bryan.
Right.
And Bobby Bryan used to do a show called Easy Street, and then he did the big band era with his wife Terry on our station. And the two of them sent 2 series about jazz. One was called Black Cats Jump, and the other was Lady Day Sings the Blues. Those series originated at this little radio station at Murray State University and went to 90 stations across the country, carrying the name of the Commonwealth with it, because we had a Department of Tourism funding for the uplink. That kind of stuff is powerful. It harkens back to the originator saying, this is a powerful medium and we ought to be in it. Another great story is Sheila Rue, who was a graduate student.
I remember her.
Okay, Sheila Rue did music from the front porch. She did a series called Crossroads that went to 70 stations nationwide. She went on to program directing at many stations, including KUSC in Los Angeles, and she is now a consultant for public radio stations nationwide, and she's a product of this radio station we're talking about.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Anita Bug from Fulgham.
Yes.
Anita Bug started at WNBS, came to school at Murray State University, and she is the news director for WPLN in Nashville as we speak.
And that's great to see kids that go on and do other things. In the time we have left, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. If someone were to want to make a pledge to give some money to your station, I guess it's time to do the numbers game.
That's really nice of you. And for all of you old folks who don't use the web, forgive me, because we do have a real simple way to make a pledge online. You just go to wkms.org, and there's a little box that says Pledge Now, and then you go in, and there's a pledge page, and you can do all of your little punch in, like you're buying something from a catalog maybe. And it's a secure site that we've been really pleased to provide of late. But you can also call the station at 800-599-4737 and ask for a pledge form. Starting March 3rd, we'll have guests from our whole listening area on the air with station staff and volunteers doing what people called various names, kindly and unkindly. Basically the beg.
Yeah, the tin cup.
Yeah, because listeners inspire all the other funders who support this station. Murray State is a major provider of personnel and a place to be. But we look for listeners, underwriters, and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting for the rest.
And as they say in TV land, we're out of time.
And I thank you.
Thank you. My guest today was Kate Lochte of WKMS Murray State. I'm Barry Craig. We will see you next time.